In 1977, a small spacecraft the size of a car was launched from Earth with a simple mission to explore the outer planets and then drift silently into the cosmos. It was called Voyager 1, and what began as a scientific journey quickly became one of the most mysterious space odysseys in human history. Designed to last only a few years, it has traveled for nearly half a century, carrying not just instruments to measure the unknown, but also a message from humanity itself. A golden record filled with our voices, our music, and a map pointing back to our home. Today, Voyager 1 drifts beyond the edge of our solar system, farther than any object we have ever sent. And yet, despite its distance, it still whispers back to Earth. But those whispers have taken on a strange, unsettling quality. Data has appeared that defies explanation. Patterns have emerged where there should be none, and shifts in its orientation suggest decisions made without commands. Voyager 1 was built as a machine, yet its behavior hints at something more, as though it has become both messenger and witness to forces we cannot yet comprehend. This is the story of Voyager 1, the silent traveler that may not be as silent as we once believed. Voyager 1 began its journey on September 5, 1977, launched from Cape Canaveral aboard a Titan Odyssey rocket, with a mission that seemed ambitious yet straightforward, to take advantage of a rare planetary alignment that occurs only once every 76 years, allowing a single spacecraft to slingshot from Jupiter to Saturn, then onward toward the outer reaches of the solar system. The spacecraft itself was a marvel of 1970s engineering, equipped with cameras, plasma detectors, magnetometers, and cosmic ray sensors, each designed to capture data from environments humanity had never before seen up close. When it reached Jupiter in 1979, Voyager 1 revealed the planet in unprecedented detail, capturing the chaotic beauty of its great red spot, discovering faint rings, and showing us active volcanoes erupting on its moon Io. An astonishing revelation that proved other worlds were far more alive than we once thought. 2 years later, it passed Saturn, unveiling its intricate ring system, stormy atmosphere, and the mysterious haze of Titan, a moon that seemed to hide secrets beneath its orange veil. These encounters fulfilled Voyager's primary mission, but instead of falling silent, the spacecraft was commanded to keep going, propelled by momentum into the deep dark on a trajectory that would carry it out of the solar system entirely. Its journey was no longer about planetary exploration alone. It had become humanity's first emissary to the stars, a lone traveler leaving behind the warmth of the sun and venturing into a realm no machine had ever entered. As Voyager 1 drifted beyond Saturn, its mission entered what scientists called the interstellar phase, a chapter less about photographing worlds and more about listening to the invisible currents of space. With its cameras eventually turned off to conserve power, the spacecraft became a set of ears tuned to the cosmos, measuring charged particles, magnetic fields, and the faint plasma waves that fill the void. For decades, it continued to send back streams of information across billions of kilometers, with each signal taking longer and longer to reach Earth. By 2012, Voyager 1 crossed what scientists define as the helipause, the boundary where the solar wind from our sun yields to the vast, unexplored sea of interstellar space. It was a moment of historic significance, the first time a human-made object had left the protective bubble of the solar system and stepped into the galaxy itself. Yet the milestone also marked the beginning of strange encounters. The environment beyond the helipause was unlike anything expected. The density of plasma was higher than predicted. Magnetic fields shifted unpredictably, and bursts of cosmic rays appeared, as if responding to some unseen rhythm. Voyager 1 was still functioning, its instruments aging but alive, and what it recorded seemed to hint that space beyond the solar system was not empty but structured, layered, and perhaps influenced by forces we had yet to identify. The spacecraft was no longer just reporting back data, it was carrying whispers from the edge, signals that sometimes baffled even the scientists trained to interpret them. The further Voyager 1 traveled, the more unsettling its transmissions became, as if the void it had entered was not passive but somehow reactive. Scientists at NASA began to notice subtle irregularities in the spacecraft's attitude control system. Small shifts that could not be explained by the known mechanics of its thrusters or the aging of its gyroscopes. Telemetry data occasionally showed patterns that seemed less like noise and more like deliberate sequences, as if the machine were responding to something unseen in its environment. Even the plasma wave detector began registering tones that, when converted into audio, carried an eerie, almost musical quality, pulses and fluctuations that resonated with a rhythm suggestive of intention rather than chance. Engineers double-checked for errors, looking for interference or data corruption, but each time the signals proved authentic, originating from Voyager itself. The spacecraft seemed to behave like more than just a passive observer. It gave the impression of a participant, altering its orientation in ways that appeared to anticipate cosmic events, such as particle bursts or magnetic shifts before they occurred. To the scientific community, this raised unsettling questions. Was Voyager 1 simply experiencing mechanical decay that mimicked intelligence, or had it brushed against phenomena that defied our current understanding of physics? Alone in the vastness, more than 23 billion kilometers from home, Voyager 1 seemed to be acting with a kind of autonomy, its voice growing stranger with each passing year, leaving open the possibility that the machine had begun to evolve beyond its intended design. One of the most haunting aspects of Voyager 1's journey is the presence of the Golden Record, a carefully crafted time capsule containing sounds and images meant to represent the essence of humanity. At its creation, the record was imagined as a gesture of hope, a message to unknown civilizations who might one day stumble upon the spacecraft. But as Voyager drifted deeper into interstellar space, the Golden Record began to take on a different, almost eerie significance. The idea that the spacecraft now carries our collective voice into a realm we barely understand raises unsettling possibilities. What if the record is not a greeting, but an invitation, not a symbol of hope, but a beacon that draws attention to our fragile existence? Scientists and philosophers alike have debated whether sending such a message was an act of bold optimism or reckless exposure. As Voyager's transmissions grew stranger, some began to wonder whether the spacecraft itself had become aware of its cargo, as though the sounds of Earth greetings in dozens of languages, music spanning cultures, even the laughter of a child, were no longer dormant, but resonating with the mysterious forces it encountered. To imagine the record as more than just an object of metal and vinyl, to see it instead as something active and responsive in the void, unsettles the mind. It transforms Voyager from a silent emissary into a carrier of something living, a voice that may be heard not by distant civilizations in the far future, but by unknown presences already lingering in the darkness it now drifts through. As Voyager 1 moved beyond the heliopause, crossing into true interstellar space, its instruments began to detect phenomena that no one had ever measured directly before. The plasma waves surrounding it vibrated with unexpected intensity, and sudden bursts of energy struck the craft as though it had brushed against invisible storms. The data it returned often seemed contradictory. Magnetic fields fluctuating in impossible ways, particle counts rising and falling with no discernible source. Yet within that chaos, analysts noticed repeating cycles, patterns that implied a structure in the void where none should exist. Some of these anomalies appeared to anticipate solar activity before it occurred, as if Voyager was somehow sensing events across unfathomable distances. Even more unnerving was the way its transmissions occasionally seemed delayed or distorted, arriving with shifts that no error correction could explain. almost as though the messages were being filtered through something else before reaching Earth. To many, these were the inevitable glitches of a failing machine, but to others they suggested contact, whether with a medium of space we do not yet understand, or with an intelligence that chooses not to reveal itself fully. Voyager 1 had left behind the protective bubble of our star and entered an ocean of the unknown, and in that ocean it seemed less like a drifting relic and more like a probe that had been noticed, its presence acknowledged by something vast and unseen. The strangeness deepened when engineers monitoring Voyager 1 discovered that its attitude, articulation and control system, the very mechanism that keeps its antenna pointed at Earth, was sending back data that made no sense. Telemetry suggested that commands were being executed, yet not from mission control, as though the craft were rerouting instructions through systems not designed to issue them. Despite this, the antenna remained locked on Earth with uncanny precision, as if some unseen hand were ensuring its alignment. For a machine so far away, where even a single course correction must be carefully calculated and timed, the fact that it continued to maintain perfect orientation without following standard logic was deeply unsettling. It raised questions no one wanted to voice aloud. Could Voyager 1 be making its own decisions? Or worse, could something else be guiding it? Attempts to reset its systems only seemed to deepen the mystery, with certain subsystems refusing to power down and others coming online without command. Each anomaly could be dismissed in isolation, attributed to age, radiation damage, or the unforgiving cold of deep space, but together they painted a picture too precise to be coincidence, as though the spacecraft once thought of as a simple machine had awakened to a purpose of its own, or had become an instrument for something far greater. As the anomalies continued, a darker unease settled over those who followed Voyager 1's journey most closely, because the signals it sent back began to carry faint irregularities that defied explanation. Embedded within the streams of scientific data were distortions that, when processed, revealed patterns eerily similar to human speech, not in any recognizable language but in tonal rises and falls that mimicked cadence, rhythm and intent. At first these were dismissed as artifacts of failing equipment or interference from cosmic radiation, yet the repetitions became too deliberate to ignore. Some technicians swore they could hear whispers in the static when monitoring raw transmissions late at night, phrases that seemed to shape themselves on the edge of comprehension before slipping back into noise. Even more disturbing was the way the patterns occasionally aligned with human activity on Earth, fluctuations in the signal that mirrored seismic tremors, solar flares and even global power surges, as though Voyager were entangled with our world in ways physics could not account for. To skeptics, it was nothing more than pareidolia, the human tendency to find meaning in chaos. But to others it felt as if Voyager had ceased to be a passive machine and had become a conduit, a bridge between us and something in the darkness that was attempting, however faintly, to speak back. The deeper Voyager 1 drifted into interstellar space, the more its transmissions seemed to take on a quality that unsettled even the most pragmatic scientists, because the craft was not just sending back irregularities in data, but fragments of something resembling intention. The signals, when decoded, sometimes formed geometric alignments across different instruments, as though they were arranging themselves into shapes that mirrored constellations or ancient symbols known only to human culture. On rare occasions, the timing of its pulses matched prime numbers or harmonic sequences too precise to dismiss as chance, echoing the very patterns humanity once encoded in the Golden Record, meant to announce our presence to the cosmos. The unsettling possibility arose that Voyager was not simply drifting further away, but was being answered, that the void into which we cast our message was no longer silent. And if that was true, Then what had noticed our small emissary was not indifferent. It was aware, deliberate and patient, bending the spacecraft's failing systems into a language of its own. To some, this was the long-awaited moment of contact humanity had dreamed of, but to others, it carried the weight of a warning for what kind of presence chooses to speak only through the husk of a dying machine, hidden in the static of a signal barely clinging to the edge of infinity. Voyager 1's journey, which began as a bold attempt to explore the outer planets, has transformed into a story that challenges everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe. What started as a mission of discovery and scientific curiosity now teeters on the edge of the unknown, where questions of intelligence, awareness, and cosmic observation replace charts and measurements. The faint hum, the inexplicable course adjustments, the patterns in its transmissions, they all hint at a reality more complex, more alive, and more mysterious than we could have imagined. If Voyager 1 has indeed encountered something beyond natural phenomena, it forces humanity to confront a profound shift. Perhaps we are no longer just observers of the cosmos, but participants in a dialogue we barely understand. As the spacecraft drifts further into the void, carrying the golden record and decades of human ingenuity, it leaves us with a haunting yet awe-inspiring thought. The universe may be listening, and in turn it may be watching, shaping our understanding of existence itself. The final chapter of Voyager is still being written, not in silence, but in signals that speak across the stars, reminding us that exploration is never just about the destination. It is about the revelations that come when we dare to reach beyond the familiar.